The shuttle docked with a soft thud, and the crew of the GSS Horizon's Edge gathered near the airlock to see their newest transfer. Captain Torvax stood at the front, his massive Veldrani frame casting a shadow over the others. His scales were the color of dark stone, and his yellow eyes watched the airlock with little interest. He had requested a combat specialist. Command had sent him a tactical consultant instead. The airlock hissed open, and out stepped a human woman. She was small. That was the first thing everyone noticed. She stood barely 5 feet tall, with dark hair pulled back in a simple knot, and brown eyes that seemed too large for her thin face. She carried a single bag over her shoulder and wore a standard coalition uniform that looked slightly too big for her frame. She looked around the docking bay with quick, nervous glances. "Lieutenant Alara Vance, reporting for duty," she said. Her voice was quiet, almost shy. Behind Torvax, someone laughed. It was Dren, the ship's weapons officer. He was a Korath, a species known for their forearms and love of battle. He made no effort to hide his amusement. "This is our tactical consultant?" Dren said. "She looks like she would blow away in a strong wind." Torvax silenced him with a look, but the captain's own expression showed his disappointment. He had served with humans before. They were strange creatures. Soft bodies, short lives, and yet they had somehow spread across the galaxy like wildfire. He respected their stubbornness, but this one did not look stubborn. She looked like a child playing dress-up. "Welcome aboard, Lieutenant," Torvax said. "Commander Yeel will show you to your quarters. We patrol the Cathari border. I expect you to stay out of the way unless needed." The woman nodded quickly. "Yes, Captain." "Thank you, Captain." She followed Commander Yeel down the corridor, and Torvax heard more laughter behind him. He did not stop it. Perhaps the crew needed something to laugh about. The Cathari border was a tense place. The Insectoid Empire had been raiding human colonies for months, and everyone expected a full war to break out soon. If this small woman was the best command could send, they were all in trouble. Over the next few days, Alara Vance became the ship's favorite joke. She flinched at loud noises. She ate alone in the mess hall, always choosing a corner seat where she could watch the door. She spent her nights in the navigation room, staring at star charts for hours. When crew members spoke to her, she answered in short sentences and avoided eye contact. "She is broken," Dren declared one evening. "Whatever war she saw, it shattered her." "Command sent us damaged goods," most of the crew agreed. They had all seen soldiers who had been broken by combat. Some came back angry. Some came back empty. This one had come back afraid of her own shadow. But Kira noticed something different. Kira was a young Vessian, species with blue skin and the ability to sense emotions. She was the ship's communications officer, and she had joined the crew only 6 months ago. She was still learning to fit in, still trying to prove herself. Perhaps that was why she felt drawn to the lonely human woman who sat by herself every night. "May I join you?" Kira asked one evening in the mess hall. Ilara looked up, surprised. Then she nodded and gestured to the seat across from her. They ate in silence for a while. Kira studied the human carefully. Up close, she could see that Ilara was older than she first appeared. There were small lines around her eyes and a streak of gray in her dark hair. Her hands were steady as she ate, not shaking like a frightened person's hands would. "You do not sleep much," Kira said. Ilara paused. "No, I do not. Bad dreams?" The human considered the question for a long moment. "Memories," she finally said. "There is a difference." Kira wanted to ask more, but she sensed that pushing would make the woman close up completely. So instead, she talked about herself. She talked about her homeworld, about her family, about her dream of exploring the galaxy. Ilara listened quietly, and sometimes she even smiled. From that night on, Kira made a point to sit with Ilara at every meal. The other crew members teased her for it, but she did not care. There was something about the human woman that Kira could not explain. When she reached out with her emotional senses, she expected to find fear or sadness. Instead, she found something that felt like still water. Deep and calm and hiding whatever lay beneath the surface, 1 week into their patrol, something happened that made Kira pay even closer attention. They were passing through an asteroid field when the navigation officer made an error. It was a small mistake, a decimal point in the wrong place. But it would have taken them dangerously close to a cluster of rocks. No one noticed except Lar. She was standing in the back of the bridge, observing as she always did. Without raising her voice, she said, "The course needs adjustment. 0.73, not 0.37. The navigation officer checked his work and went pale. He corrected the error quickly, and the ship sailed safely through the field. Captain Torvax looked at Alara with new eyes. "How did you catch that?" "I have been studying the charts," she said simply. "I noticed the field was denser than the standard maps show. It was such a small thing." But Kira saw the way Alara's eyes moved across the bridge displays. She was not just observing. She was analyzing everything. Every position, every system, every crew member. 2 nights later, Kira found Alara in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. She was holding something in her hands. "A photograph, old and worn at the edges. What is that?" Kira asked. Alara quickly put the photograph away. "Nothing. Just something I carry." But Kira had seen enough. It was a picture of children. Human children, maybe a dozen of them, smiling at the camera. "Your family?" Kira asked gently. Alara was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Something like that?" Before Kira could ask more questions, the ship's alarm began to scream. Red lights flashed across every corridor. Captain Torvax's voice boomed over the speakers. "All hands to battle stations. We have received a priority transmission. A Cathari war fleet has surrounded the human colony of New Meridian. They are demanding unconditional surrender." Kira turned to run to her station, but she stopped when she saw Alara's face. The nervous woman was gone. The one who flinched at loud noises, who avoided eye contact, who seemed afraid of everything around her. In her place stood someone else entirely. Someone whose eyes had gone cold and hard like stones at the bottom of a frozen river. Alara's hands were not trembling anymore. "The Cathari," she said softly, almost to herself. Of course. It was always going to be them. She walked past Kira toward the bridge, and for the first time, her footsteps did not make a sound. The horizon's edge dropped out of hyperspace, alongside 20 other coalition vessels. It was the fastest response fleet they could gather. It was not enough. New Meridian hung in space like a blue and green jewel. Orbiting around it were 60 Cathari warships. Their dark hulls were covered in sharp angles and jagged edges, designed to look like the exoskeletons of the insects who built them. Each ship bristled with weapons that could tear through metal like paper. Captain Torvax stood on the bridge, his jaw tight as he studied the enemy formation. The coalition fleet was outnumbered 3-1. Even with human stubbornness on their side, those were not good odds. "The Cathari Admiral is transmitting," Kira announced from her station. "He is demanding that we surrender immediately. If we refuse, he says he will begin orbital bombardment of New Meridian in 1 hour. The bridge fell silent. Every crew member knew what orbital bombardment meant. There were 2 million humans living on that colony. Men, women, and children who would be turned to ash if the HCO coalition could not stop this fleet. Torvax opened a channel to the other coalition ships. The face of Admiral Chen appeared on the screen. She was an older human woman with silver hair and tired eyes. Behind her, Torvax could see other captains joining the conference. "We cannot win a direct fight," Admiral Chen said. "Our only option is to delay them long enough for reinforcements to arrive. But even that may not save the colony." "What about evacuation?" asked the Thesion captain. "The Cathari would shoot down any transport ships. They have the planet completely surrounded." The captains argued back and forth, but none of their plans could work. Every strategy ended the same way. The coalition fleet would be destroyed. New Meridian would burn. Alara stood at the back of the Horizon's Edge bridge, watching and listening. She had not spoken since arriving. Kira glanced at her several times, wondering what was happening behind those cold, calm eyes. Finally, Alara stepped forward. "Captain, may I see the tactical data?" Torvax almost refused. What could this small, nervous consultant offer that 20 experienced commanders could not? But something in her voice made him pause. There was no fear in it anymore. No hesitation, show her, he said. The tactical display expanded before Alara. She studied it for a long moment, her eyes moving across the enemy positions with careful attention. The crew watched her, some with curiosity, others with impatience. Their formation is wrong, Alara said quietly. What do you mean? Torvax asked. Look at their ship placement. They have surrounded the planet, but their weapons are pointed outward, not down. If they wanted to bombard the colony, they would position differently. She traced a line across the display. This is a defensive formation. They are protecting themselves from something. Commander Dren laughed. Protecting themselves? They have 60 ships, and we have 20. What could they possibly be afraid of? Alara did not answer him. Instead, she walked to Kira's station. Can you open a private channel to our nearest ship? The destroyer? Vigilant? Kira looked at Captain Torvax. He nodded slowly. Channel open, Kira said. Captain Reyes, Alara said. Move your ship 15 degrees starboard and reduce speed by 10%. There was a confused pause. Then Captain Reyes's voice came through. Who is this? On whose authority? Alara looked at Torvax. The Veldrani captain hesitated, then said, Do it. Consider it a tactical experiment. The Vigilant adjusted its position. Almost immediately, 3 Cathari ships shifted to match the movement. They did not attack. They simply repositioned, maintaining their defensive pattern. They are tracking our movements, Alara said, but not aggressively. They do not want to fight us. They want to control where we go. Why? Torvax asked. Alara was quiet for a moment. Because this is not an invasion. It is a trap. And the bait is not New Meridian. She looked up at the captain. The bait is a person. Someone they want to draw out. Before anyone could respond, Kira interrupted. Captain, we are receiving a priority transmission. Admiral Chen is asking why the Vigilant changed position without orders. Tell her to wait, Torvax said. His eyes were fixed on Alara. Lieutenant, if you know something, now's the time to share it. Alara was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was heavy with something Kira could not name. Captain, I need to speak with you privately. There are things I was not permitted to tell you when I came aboard. But if I am right about what is happening here, you deserve to know the truth. Torvax studied her face. The nervous woman who had stumbled onto his ship a week ago was completely gone. In her place stood someone else. Someone who looked at 60 enemy warships without fear. Someone who had seen something worse and survived. My ready room, he said. Dren, you have the bridge. They walked together through the corridor. Alara moved differently now. Her steps were silent and measured, like a predator walking through familiar territory. Torvax found himself watching her with new eyes in the ready room. Alara stood by the window and looked out at the enemy fleet. 3 years ago, the Cathari invaded a human colony called Terminus, she said. It was a small settlement. 10,000 civilians, most of them families. The Cathari wanted to test human defenses before their main expansion. Torvax nodded slowly. I remember hearing about Terminus. The colony was destroyed. Not destroyed. Occupied. Lara's voice was flat, like she was reading from a report. The Cathari expected easy victory. Instead, they found something else. A resistance. 200 survivors who refused to die quietly. You were there, Torvax said. It was not a question. For 47 days, we fought. Not to win. We knew we could not win. We fought to make them pay for every inch of ground. We fought to buy time for the evacuation ships to rescue whoever they could. Torvax was quiet. 47 days against a Cathari occupation force. With civilians. With no real weapons or supplies, the numbers alone were impossible. How many survived? He asked. 200 went into the tunnels with me. 83 made it out. She paused. The Cathari lost over 2,000 soldiers. They started calling me a ghost. They said I could walk through walls and disappear into shadows, And the Cathari out there know who you are? Ilara turned to face him. Yes, I did something during the occupation. Something that changed everything. And now someone in that fleet has come looking for me. Before she could explain further, Kira's voice came over the speaker. Captain, urgent transmission from the Kethri flagship. They are not speaking to Admiral Chen. They are broadcasting on all channels. Torvax and Ilara ran back to the bridge. Every screen showed the same image. A Cathari admiral, his exoskeleton scarred from countless battles. His mandibles clicked slowly as he spoke. We know you are hiding her, the admiral said. Send us Commander Vance, or negotiations end now. The entire bridge turned to stare at the small woman standing beside their captain. Ilara did not blink. She did not flinch. She simply stepped forward and said, Open a channel. The bridge of the horizon's edge had never been so quiet. Every crew member stared at the small human woman who stepped toward the main screen. Commander Dren's 4 hands hung limp at his sides. Captain Torvax stood frozen, his yellow eyes wide with shock. Open a channel, Ilara said again. Her voice was calm and cold. Kira's fingers moved across her console. Channel open. Ilara straightened her spine and looked directly at the Cathari admiral on the screen. When she spoke, her voice carried across every ship in both fleets. Admiral Skethix. It has been a long time. The Cathari admiral went still. His compound eyes reflected the light of distant stars. His mandibles clicked in a pattern that the translation system identified as respect mixed with caution. Commander Vance, Skethix said. The ghost of Terminus. I wondered if you would reveal yourself. Behind Ilara, the crew exchanged stunned glances. Ghost of Terminus. It was a name that human soldiers spoke in whispers. A legend from a war that most people wanted to forget. You came a long way to find me, Ilara said. 60 ships is a lot of firepower just to capture one woman. You are not just any woman. You are the human who taught my people fear. Skethix leaned forward. Do you remember what you did on Terminus, Commander? Do you remember the soldier you found bleeding in the tunnels? Ilara's expression did not change, but Kira noticed something shift in her eyes. A flash of memory. A glimpse of pain quickly buried. I remember every day of those 47 days, Ilara said. I remember every face. Yours is not among them, Admiral. You were not there? No, but my brood son was. Silence fell across the bridge. Kira watched Ilara's face, searching for any reaction. The human woman stood perfectly still, like a statue carved from stone. Kethfer, Ilara said softly. The young soldier with the damaged leg? Yes. Skethix's voice dropped lower. He was 19 years old. A foolish youth who volunteered for the Terminus invasion because he wanted glory. Instead, he found your tunnels, your traps, your resistance. I found him bleeding out near the water recycling station, Ilara said. His patrol had triggered one of our explosives. He was the only survivor. By every law of war, you should have killed him. He was your enemy. His people were slaughtering your civilians. No one would have blamed you for putting a blade through his heart. Skethix paused. Instead, you bandaged his wounds. You gave him water and food. And when he was strong enough to walk, you released him back to our lines. The crew of the Horizon's Edge listened in stunned silence. Captain Torvax's claws scraped against the armrest of his chair. He had fought the Cathari. He had lost friends to their blades. The idea of showing mercy to one of them seemed impossible. Why? Skethix asked. We have wondered for 3 years. Why did you spare him? Ilara was quiet for a moment. When she answered, her voice was softer than before. Because he was crying for his mother. Because he was just a boy who did not understand what he had been sent to do. Because killing him would not have brought back the children we had already buried. She stepped closer to the screen. I learned something on Terminus, Admiral. Hate is easy. Mercy is hard. And the hardest thing of all is to look at your enemy and see a person instead of a monster. Skethix made a sound that the translator could not identify. It might have been a laugh. It might have been something else. Kethver returned to us changed, the Admiral said. He spoke of the human woman who showed him kindness when she had every reason to show him death. He told others, they told others. And slowly, something began to spread through our military. A question that our leaders did not want asked. What question? If humans could show mercy to their enemies, what did that say about us? What did it say about this war we were fighting? Captain Torvax finally found his voice. Admiral, what exactly is happening here? You threaten to destroy a colony, you demand to see Commander Vance, and now you tell us stories of mercy. What do you want? Skethix turned his gaze to the Veldrani captain. I want to save my people, Captain, and I believe your Commander Vance is the only one who can help, explained quickly. 3 months ago, a faction within the Cathari military had seized control. They called themselves the Hollow Swarm. They believed that any Cathari who showed weakness toward other species was contaminated and needed to be purged. They are hunting everyone who was touched by Terminus, Skethix said. Every soldier who questioned the war, every officer who wondered if peace was possible. Kethver was executed last month. His crime was speaking of the human who showed him kindness. Ilara's face went pale. Her hands curled into fists at her sides. My fleet has defected, Skethix continued. We carry 10,000 Cathari. Soldiers, families, hatchlings, all of them guilty of the crime of imagining a different future. We need asylum, Commander. And we need safe passage through Coalition space. Admiral Chen's face appeared on a secondary screen. She had been listening to the entire conversation. This is madness. You expect us to escort enemy ships through our territory? The Coalition Council would never approve it. That is why we came here, Skethix said. New Meridian was a destination, not a target. We needed to find Commander Vance. She is the only human our people will trust, and she is the only human the Hollow Swarm fears. Every eye turned back to Ilara. She stood at the center of the bridge, surrounded by aliens who had laughed at her just days ago. The weight of 2 million human lives on New Meridian pressed down on her shoulders. The weight of 10,000 Cathari refugees joined it. The Hollow Swarm, she said quietly. They will come after you. They're already coming. We have perhaps 30 hours before their main fleet arrives. Skethix's mandibles clicked with something like desperation. Please, Commander. You showed mercy once. Can you do it again? Ilara turned to face Captain Torvax. Her eyes were bright with something fierce and determined. Captain, I need to ask this crew to do something impossibly stupid, she said. I need us to escort a Cathari fleet through Coalition space. We will need to convince everyone we pass that these ships are our prisoners, and we will need to reach Earth before the Hollow Swarm catches us. Torvax stared at her for a long moment. You are asking me to trust the enemy. I'm asking you to trust me. Lara held his gaze without flinching. I know what I am asking. I know how insane it sounds. But I have looked into the eyes of Cathari soldiers who wanted to tear me apart. And I have also looked into the eyes of one who wanted nothing more than to go home to his family. She turned to the crew around her. To Dren, who had mocked her. To Kira, who had shown her kindness. To all of them who had dismissed her as weak and broken. I did not survive Terminus because I was strong, she said. I survived because I refused to let hate make my decisions for me. And right now, I am asking you to make the same choice. The bridge was silent. Then Kira stood from her station. I trust her, she said simply. One by one, other crew members nodded. Torvax watched his people choose to follow a woman they had laughed at 1 week ago. Finally, he turned back to the screen. Admiral Skethix, he said, form your ships into convoy formation. We have a long journey ahead. The convoy moved through space like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. 20 Coalition ships flew in formation with 60 Cathari vessels. Their weapons were powered down, their shields lowered in a gesture of trust that made every soldier on both sides nervous. Ilara stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, studying the tactical display. They had left New Meridian 16 hours ago. 14 hours remained before the Hollow Swarm would catch up. It was not enough time. We are approaching the border checkpoint, Kira announced. Coalition patrol fleet is requesting identification? Captain Torvax nodded grimly. This was the first test. Admiral Chen had gone ahead to speak with Coalition Command, but communication through official channels was too dangerous. The Hollow Swarm had spies everywhere. One wrong word and the entire mission would be exposed. "Open a channel," Torvax said. The face of a human commander appeared on screen. His eyes widened when he saw the Cathari ships visible through the Horizon's Edge bridge windows. "Captain Torvax, what is the meaning of this? Why are you traveling with enemy vessels?" "These ships are surrendering prisoners," Torvax said carefully. "We are escorting them to Earth for processing." The human commander frowned. "I have no record of any mass surrender. And those ships still have weapons?" It was a sudden development. "Check your priority channels. Authorization should be coming through soon." There was a tense pause. Ilara watched the commander's face, reading his suspicion. The Hollow Swarm had people in Coalition intelligence. If this commander was one of them, the convoy was finished. "I need to speak with whoever is in command of this operation," the commander said. Ilara stepped forward. "That would be me." The commander looked at her with confusion. A small human woman giving orders to a mixed fleet of aliens and former enemies. It made no sense to him. "And who are you?" "Lieutenant Ilara Vance, tactical consultant." Nothing happened for a moment. Then Ilara spoke again, her voice dropping to a different tone. "Terminus Protocol 7. The children are still sleeping." The commander's face changed. His eyes went wide with recognition. Then he straightened in his chair and saluted. "Commander Vance, forgive me. I did not recognize you." He turned to someone off screen. "Stand down weapons. Let them pass." The patrol fleet parted like water, and the convoy continued on its way. Kira stared at Ilara with new questions in her eyes. "What was that code?" she asked quietly. "Something from another life," Ilara said. "A language that only certain people understand." As the hours passed, the convoy began to change. At first, the Coalition and Kethari crews stayed on their own ships, watching each other through screens and sensors. But Ilara began to arrange small meetings, supply transfers that required face-to-face contact, technical consultations to help damaged Cathari vessels repair their systems. On the Horizon's Edge, a Cathari engineer named Vethra came aboard to help fix a problem with a navigation computer. She was young, her exoskeleton still soft in places where it had not fully hardened. She moved through the corridors with obvious fear, expecting violence at every turn. Kira was assigned to escort her. At first, neither of them spoke. But when they reached the engineering bay, Vethra stopped and stared at the equipment. "This is old technology," she said. "My grandmother had machines like this." "The Horizon's Edge is not the newest ship in the fleet," Kira admitted. Vethra's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "It is charming, like a museum that flies." Kira found herself laughing. The sound surprised both of them. They worked together for 3 hours. By the end, they were talking about their families, their dreams, their fears about the future. When Vethra returned to her own ship, she touched Kira's shoulder in a gesture of farewell. "Perhaps we are not so different," she said quietly. "My people taught me to hate yours. But hatred is difficult to hold when someone is kind to you." Similar scenes played out across the convoy. A Cathari soldier shared a meal with a human pilot. A Veldrani warrior taught a young Cathari a game from his home world. Slowly, carefully, the walls between them began to crack, but not everyone was ready to trust Captain. Torvax found Ilara in the observation deck late one night. She was staring at the stars, her face drawn with exhaustion. "You should rest," he said. "The swarm will arrive soon. You need to be sharp." "I have not slept properly in 3 years," Ilara said. "A few more hours will not make a difference." Torvax stood beside her in silence. After a moment, he spoke. "My brother was killed by the Kethari 12 years ago. His ship was destroyed in a raid near the Veldrani border." Ilara turned to look at him. Her eyes held understanding, not pity. "I have hated them ever since," Torvax continued. "When I saw their ships surrounding New Meridian, I wanted nothing more than to fire every weapon we had, to make them pay for what they took from me. And now, Now I watch a young Kethari engineer laugh with my communications officer, and I do not know what to feel. He shook his head slowly. How do you do it, Commander? How do you look at the people who killed your friends and not want revenge? Alara was quiet for a long moment. I did want revenge. Every single day on Terminus, I wanted to kill every Cathari I could find. I wanted to make them suffer the way we were suffering. What changed? I found Kethver bleeding in those tunnels. And when I looked at him, I did not see an enemy. I saw a boy who was just as scared as I was. She paused. Revenge would have felt good for a moment, but it would not have brought back the children we lost. It would not have healed anything. So you chose mercy. I chose to be the person I wanted to be, instead of the person they were trying to make me. An alarm began to sound across the ship. Kira's voice came over the speakers. All hands to battle stations. The Hollow Swarm fleet has arrived. They're blocking our path. Lara and Torvax ran to the bridge. The tactical display showed 30 Cathari warships directly ahead. These were not the damaged, desperate vessels of the refugees. These were fresh warships, their weapons fully powered and ready for battle. A transmission came through. The face of a Cathari commander filled the screen. His exoskeleton was decorated with symbols of rank and honor. His eyes burned with cold certainty. Traitors, he said. You flee like cowards with alien vermin. Admiral Skethix, your crimes against the swarm are beyond counting. Surrender now, and we will grant your soldiers a clean death. Skethix appeared on a secondary screen. His voice was steady, but Kira could see the tension in his movements. Commander Threx, there is no need for bloodshed. Let us pass. You have corrupted yourself beyond saving. You follow a human as if she were your queen. The ghost of Terminus has poisoned your mind. Threx turned his gaze to Alara. It's for you, human. Your legend ends today. Alara stepped forward. Her voice was clear and sharp. Commander Threx, you have 30 ships.
We have 80.
Even if we are not trained to fight together, numbers are against you. Stand aside, Threx laughed. It was an ugly sound, full of contempt. Numbers mean nothing when your fleet is divided. Half your ships are crewed by traitors. The other half are soft aliens who lack the stomach for true war.
Ow.
You would be surprised what soft people can do. When they fight for something they believe, in pretty words from a dead woman. Threx leaned forward. But perhaps we can settle this another way. Single combat. You're a champion against mine. If you win, we let you pass. If we win, you surrender yourself and your traitors. Stand down. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what Threx was suggesting. Cathari champions were bred for battle. They were 8 feet tall, covered in armor-like exoskeletons, and trained from birth to kill. Ilara smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had faced worse odds and survived. I accept, she said, but I will be my own champion. Kira grabbed her arm. Alara, no. You cannot fight one of their champions. They will tear you apart. Alara looked at her with those calm, cold eyes. I survived Terminus, Kira, not because I was stronger than them. Because I refused to stop fighting, she turned back to Threx. Single combat. No weapons but what we bring. First one to yield or die, loses. Threx's mandibles clicked with pleasure. Agreed, prepare to meet your end, Ghost. The shuttle bay was cold and empty. Alara stood alone, checking the straps on her combat suit. It was light armor, designed for speed rather than protection. Against a Cathari champion, it would offer little defense. The crew of the Horizon's Edge had gathered to watch her prepare. Kira stood at the front, her blue face tight with worry. Captain Torvax kept his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. This is suicide, Dren said. He no longer sounded mocking. He sounded scared. She cannot win against a champion. Those things are built for killing. She did not ask for your opinion, Torvax said quietly. Ilara finished her preparations and walked toward the shuttle. Before she could board, Kira stepped into her path. Why? Kira asked. Why does it have to be you? Someone else could fight. someone bigger, someone stronger. Lara placed her hand on Kira's shoulder. Because this is not about strength, Kira. It never was. The Hollow Swarm believes that mercy is weakness. They believe that kindness makes you soft. If I send someone else to fight, I prove them right. But what if you lose? Then I lose. But at least I will have shown them what a human looks like when she refuses to stop. Lara smiled. It was a sad, gentle smile. The children of Terminus did not die because I was weak. They died because war is cruel and unfair. But I can choose what kind of person I am in the face of that cruelty. She boarded the shuttle and flew toward the neutral ground where the duel would take place. A small asteroid had been chosen for the fight. No atmosphere, no gravity wells, just cold rock floating in the void. The Ketheri champion was already waiting. His name was Vorthok, and he was everything Alara was not. 8 feet of armored muscle, his exoskeleton thick with battle scars. He carried no weapons because he did not need them. His claws could cut through steel. Commander Threx's voice echoed across both fleets. Let the duel begin, Vorthok charged. He moved faster than something that big should be able to move. His claws swept toward Lara's head in an arc that would have cut her in half. She was not there. Alara dropped low and rolled to the side. Her smaller size became an advantage. Vorthok was powerful, but he was not built for precision. He fought like a hammer when he needed to fight like a needle. The first exchange ended with Vorthok striking empty air and Alara landing, a kick against the back of his leg. It barely scratched his armor, but it made him stumble. He turned with a roar and attacked again. And again. And again. On the horizon's edge, the crew watched in stunned silence. Alara was not winning. She could not win against such raw power. But she was not losing either. Every attack missed by inches. Every killing blow found nothing but empty space. She's not trying to beat him, Torvak said slowly. She is trying to outlast him. The duel continued for 10 minutes. 20. 30. Vorthok's movements grew slower, less controlled. His breathing became labored. He had never fought an opponent who refused to stand still. He had never faced someone who treated every near-death moment as just another step in a dance. Alara was bleeding. A claw had caught her arm during one exchange. Another had sliced across her ribs. But she kept moving. She kept getting back up. Every time she fell, she stood again. Every time Vorthok thought he had her, she slipped away. On the swarm ships, soldiers watched their champion struggle against a creature half his size. Doubt began to creep into their minds. This was supposed to be easy. This was supposed to prove that humans were weak. Instead, they watched a small woman refuse to die. Finally, Vorthok caught her. His claw wrapped around her throat and lifted her off the ground. Alara's feet kicked at empty air. Her hands clutched at his armored wrist. Blood dripped from her wounds onto the cold rock below. It is over, Ghost, Vorthok hissed. Any last words? Alara could not speak with his claw around her throat, but she still had one hand free, and in that hand was a blade. A small knife she had hidden in her suit. She could drive it into his eye right now. She could end this with a single thrust. Instead, she dropped the blade. It clattered against the rock and lay there, glinting in the starlight. Vorthok stared at her in confusion. You could have killed me, Alara nodded. Or tried to. It was difficult, with a claw crushing her windpipe. Why? Vorthok demanded. Why throw away your only chance? She forced words through her damaged throat. Because killing you would not prove anything. Because I am not fighting to destroy you. I am fighting to show you something. Show me what? That strength is not the only thing that matters. She met his eyes without fear. Your leaders told you that mercy makes you weak. But I am still here. I have been fighting your people for 3 years, and I am still standing. Not because I am strong, because I refuse to let hate decide who I am. She coughed blood. The soldier I saved on Terminus, his name was Kethfer. He was Admiral Skethix's son. I could have killed him. I chose not to. And now his father's fleet stands with me. Vorthok's grip loosened slightly. His compound eyes blinked with something that might have been uncertainty. That is what mercy builds, Alara continued. Enemies who become allies. Hatred that transforms into understanding. What has your hatred built, Vorthok? What has the hollow swarm created except more death? She turned her head toward the watching fleets. Both sides could hear her words through the broadcast. I am not a ghost. I am not a demon. I am just a woman who decided that some things are worth more than victory. Kindness, compassion, the choice to see your enemy as a person instead of a monster. She looked back at Vorthok. You can kill me now, but you cannot kill what I represent. You cannot kill the idea that tomorrow could be different than today. For a long moment, nothing happened. Vorthok held her suspended above the ground, his claws tight around her throat. The entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Then slowly, carefully, Vorthok lowered her to the ground. His claw released her throat. He stepped back. I yield, he said quietly. Chaos erupted across the swarm fleet. Commander Threx screamed for his soldiers to attack, but the soldiers did not move. They had watched their greatest champion choose surrender over victory. They had heard the words of the ghost of Terminus, and for the first time they began to question everything they had been taught. Some ships opened fire on the convoy, others turned their weapons on their own fleet mates. The hollow swarm tore itself apart as those who believed in hatred fought against those who were starting to imagine something else. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, Commander Threx was dead, his ship destroyed by his own people. The remaining swarm vessels either fled into hyperspace or surrendered and asked to join the convoy. Alara was brought back to the horizons. Edge barely conscious. Her wounds were severe, but she was alive. Kira sat beside her medical bed and held her hand through the long hours of surgery. 2 days later, the convoy reached Earth. 80,000 Kethari refugees were granted asylum. It was the first step toward a peace that no one had thought possible in a small ceremony. Admiral Skethix presented Alara with a token of gratitude from his people. It was a crystal that held the recorded memories of Kethfer, the young soldier she had saved 3 years ago. He never forgot your kindness, Skethix said. He believed until his last day that peace between our peoples was possible. You proved him right. Captain Torvax formally requested that Alara be assigned to the Horizon's Edge as his executive officer. She accepted. On her first night in her new quarters, Kira found her looking at her photograph again. The children of Terminus smiled up from the worn paper. Will you tell me about them? Kira asked. Alara was quiet for a moment. Then she began to speak. She told Kira their names, their dreams, their favorite games. She told her about the ones who had laughed even in the darkness of the tunnels. She told her about the ones who had cried and the ones who had been brave. Every battle I fight is for them, Alara said. Every enemy I spare is for them. Because hate would be easier, but it would not bring them back. The only thing that honors their memory is building the world they should have lived to see. Kira sat beside her in comfortable silence. Outside the window, the stars stretched on forever. Today we saved some, Alara said softly. Today was a good day, and across the galaxy, the story spread. Not of a human warrior who destroyed her enemies with fire and steel, but of a small woman who kept getting back up every time she was knocked down. A woman who offered her hand to those who had tried to kill her. A woman who taught the stars that the smallest soldiers can cast the longest shadows. The Cathari, Te, had a new name for her now. They no longer called her the ghost of Terminus. They called her the heart of humanity,